Picture this. You're sitting there, coffee in hand, trying to book a flight for that summer trip we've all been dreaming about. You're comparing prices, looking for those budget wins, doing what we do best, when suddenly your phone buzzes. You look down, and your news feed absolutely erupts. The headline, Dual Citizenship Ban US. It hits you like a seat sale notification, but instead of excitement, it's pure confusion. I did a double take when I saw it too. My first thought was, is this real? Or is this just the internet doing that thing where it loves drama more than details? If you're watching this, you've probably seen the chatter in the group chats. You might have seen the hot takes flying around social media. Maybe you're one of the millions of Americans who holds a second passport, or maybe you're just a traveler who knows that passport rules are the lifeline of our lifestyle. But today, we aren't talking about saving money on hotels or hacking airline miles. We are talking about saving your status. Today, we are doing a deep dive into the Exclusive Citizenship Act of 2025. I'm going to be your calm briefing in the middle of the storm. We're going to look at what this bill actually says, who introduced it, and, most importantly, whether you really need to be panicking at 3 a.m. or if this is just political noise. So put down the panic button, grab your coffee, and let's get into the details. Let's cut right through the legalese and get to the core of what this proposal is actually demanding. The Exclusive Citizenship Act is a piece of legislation that, if passed, would fundamentally change how the United States views nationality. At its heart, the bill pushes for something called sole and exclusive allegiance. Now, that phrase sounds fancy, like something out of a historical drama, but in plain language, it means the law would require your legal loyalty to be monogamous. It's proposing a world where you cannot have a foot in two camps. No back and forth between nationalities would be permitted if you want to keep your U.S. status. Here is the kicker. The draft legislation warns that some passports could be made null and void if folks don't choose. It creates a strict two-lane choice. Lane 1, you pick the United States and formally renounce any other allegiance. Lane 2, you pick the other nation, and you are treated as having given up your U.S. status. It's a massive shift. Right now, and for decades, the U.S. has operated on a quiet norm of tolerance. We've been allowed to manage overlapping obligations. But this act proposes drawing a hard line in the sand. It's essentially saying, pick a side, or we will pick one for you. So, who is behind this? The bill was sponsored by Senator Bernie Moreno. Now, what's interesting here is the context. Senator Moreno is an immigrant himself. He became a citizen at the age of 18. His stated rationale for this bill revolves around the concept of undivided loyalty. He frames the measure as a way to tighten national security and clarify national identity. The argument he's making is that a citizen should not have divided allegiances. To him, and to the supporters of this bill, holding two passports isn't just a travel convenience. It's a conflict of interest. But on the flip side, critics, and there are many, argue that this view ignores the reality of our modern, globalized world. We're talking about expats, global workers, and families with deep, mixed nationality roots. For them, this isn't about disloyalty, it's about heritage and logistical survival. Senator Moreno's proposal is trying to turn what has been a flexible, real-world arrangement into a rigid legal binary, and that is why it's causing such a stir. Let's talk about how this would actually work mechanically, because the details are where things get sticky. If this bill were to become law, it introduces a concept called automatic loss. The text outlines a 180-day runway after enactment before the rules would kick in. Think of this as the warning period. Once that period is up, the clock starts ticking. The proposal suggests a one-year window. If you already have dual nationality, you would have 1 year to renounce the other citizenship in writing. If you don't, the proposal says you could be deemed to have relinquished your U.S. nationality. Deemed to have relinquished. That is the scary phrase. It means that instead of you voluntarily walking into an embassy and saying, I give up my U.S. citizenship, the law would interpret your inaction, your keeping of that second passport, as the act of giving up your American status. And for those of you thinking, well, I'll just get a second passport later, this applies to you too. If you acquire another nationality later, say through ancestry or an investment program, you would be at risk of this automatic loss unless you renounce that new foreign status within the prescribed window. It's not an instant snatching of your passport at the border tomorrow, but it is a very stressful countdown clock. I want to pause the legal talk for a second and talk about what this feels like for us, the travelers. Think of it like this. You're walking through a crowded room carrying a hot bowl of soup and your boarding pass. You're balanced. You're fine. Then, someone comes along and just wobbles the table. Even if the soup doesn't spill, the stability is gone. That's what this proposal is doing right now. It's wobbling the table. For those of us who split time across borders, our lives depend on easy entry, work rights, and predictable residency rules. If this law passes, airlines aren't going to accept "it's complicated" as an answer at the check-in counter. Imagine trying to board a flight. There's a mismatch in your documents. The computer says one thing, your passport says another. That's not just a delay, that's a nightmare. And it goes beyond the airport. Think about long-term stays. Think about work authorization. If you lose your U.S. nationality, you lose the right to vote. You could face complications with Social Security. And here is a group rarely discussed: military retirees. If you are a retired U.S. service member with dual citizenship, your retired status and pay are often linked to your recognized legal status. If that status is stripped, could you lose access to base facilities? Could your pension be at risk? These are the knock-on effects that turn a policy debate into a personal financial crisis. Okay, take a deep breath. I can hear the heart rates rising. Now I want to give you the reality check. Just because a bill is introduced doesn't mean it's going to happen. In fact, this bill is trying to throw rocks at a very large, very old fortress, the U.S. Constitution. There are massive legal hurdles here. First, we have the 14th Amendment. It provides birthright protections that make it incredibly hard for the government to involuntarily take away your citizenship. Then, we have Supreme Court precedents. There is a famous case, Afroyim versus Rusk from 1967. The Supreme Court essentially said the government cannot strip someone of their citizenship without their voluntary renunciation. Another case, Vance versus Terrazas, added that officials must prove your intent to give up citizenship. You can't just be deemed to have given it up because a calendar date passed. So, legal analysts are looking at this Exclusive Citizenship Act and pointing out that its automatic loss mechanisms clash directly with these settled laws. If this bill passed, it would almost certainly face immediate court challenges. The courts treat citizenship like a fortress. It is very hard to breach. So, where does that leave us today? Currently, the text is sitting in the Senate Judiciary Committee. That is the very early stage of the road from idea to law. Committees are where drafts often go to get edited, debated, or, quite honestly, to die quietly. I checked the numbers. GovTrack, which tracks legislative statistics, currently gives this bill about a 3% to 7% probability of becoming law. Let me repeat that. Single digits. Low probability isn't zero, of course, and awareness is always better than panic. But those numbers mean you should not be selling your house or renouncing your second citizenship tomorrow morning based on a headline. So, what should you do right now? First, don't panic. A bill is not a law. The State Department's current guidance still says that choosing between nationalities is not required. Second, do a calm document check. Make sure your passports, birth certificates, and proof of nationality are organized. It's always good practice for a frugal traveler. Third, monitor official sources. Don't rely on viral clips or group chat hot takes. Follow credible reporting and check the official status of the bill. And finally, think of this as a forced breakup with your second passport that hasn't happened yet. It's messy to think about, but right now, you are still together. If you are genuinely worried because of your specific situation, maybe you're in the middle of a naturalization process, talk to a qualified immigration lawyer. Do not take irreversible steps based on rumors. The world of travel is always changing and rules can shift. But for now, the Exclusive Citizenship Act is a proposal, not a reality. I'll be keeping a close eye on this, and if anything changes, you'll be the first to know. If you found this deep dive helpful, make sure to hit that like button. It helps the channel a ton. And remember, whether you have one passport or two. Discover more, spend less. I'll see you in the next one.